good. Let's try. Yeah, that's good enough, I guess. Okay. Kevin is knocking on the door.
Huh. Gretchen says she can't get in, but I thought I saw her in.
Yeah, she's listed as being on the list of participants.
Yeah.
Maybe Lucinda, tell her like to close out and log out and try to sign back in.
Okay.
Oh, I see Stacy is there too. That's great. Okay, let me get my piece of paper. There we go. So the plan is to read the preamble right as we open the meeting, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And you give me the high sign when you are ready to start, and I will do that.
Okay.
Do we have enough people present, or should we wait a couple
No,
more?
We don't have quorum yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need one more.
All right. Well, hopefully Michael or Neil or Lloyd will get on here.
Well, there's
Otherwise, this may be a very fast meeting.
Hey, Sandy.
Yeah.
Do we call the meeting to order and then do the preamble, or do we do the preamble and then call the meeting to order?
Probably calling the meeting to order first and then doing the preamble.
Okay.
Is that what you've been doing for the PDC meeting? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our board meetings as well.
Yeah, you really should probably call it to order.
First. There is a hand raised. I don't know if you guys want to either adjust it or let Mr. Emery know when he'll have an opportunity to speak.
I'm privately chatting with Mr.
Okay.
Emery,
Okay.
and I'm explaining to him that he will be able to speak during the open comment period at the beginning of the meeting, and we'll be sure to call on him. And Bill Emery
I see
would
his-
like to make a comment during the open comment period.
And Paul Josie would as well.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, raise your hand so we'll find you. That's great. We'll make a list.
Good afternoon, Ann. This is Ned. I joined a minute late. I apologize. Are we just waiting on a quorum? Is that what we're?
Hello, Ned. Yes, I think we need some city representatives before we really should begin. I'm glad you're here.
Did you hear anything back, Lucinda,
From Gretchen?
any of the policy board members? Like, you didn't get any communication, did you?
No.
Okay. No.
I sent out the meeting packets.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I would propose, since we have lots of people here that we will not be able to vote on anything, but we will certainly can hear from people, and with 3 members present, we can host the public hearing, I guess, because we would have a majority present. I see nodding. I just want to make sure I'm not overstepping here.
I think you would be perfectly within your rights, as you said, without voting, but moving ahead.
All right. So I would propose that we do that. And what I need to do now is get back to my, Lucinda, if you can pull back the agenda for a minute so I can get my preamble that I can read, because I didn't get it in a separate piece of paper. There, oops, almost. Where'd it go? One more. Oh, there we go. All right. Very good. All right. Then I will call the May 27th Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting to order. And the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission Policy Board are meeting this evening, May 27th at 4 p.m. with a quorum, almost a quorum of voting members through electronic virtual communication of Zoom software application. The meeting agenda and virtual meeting address has been posted for 1 week at 401 Water Street East on the TJPDC website and provided to local media outlets and provided to the general public and policy board members contemporaneously. This meeting is open to public viewing and public comment and will be allowed through electronic communication at such time as provided in the meeting agenda. As a public body, the TJPDC is allowed to meet utilizing virtual meeting procedures as outlined in item 4.0-0 state budget HB 29, period. I'm going to interrupt for a question and say, to make this absolutely correct, should I be saying the MPO instead of the PDC?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll do that going forward. That was, I don't want to read that whole paragraph over, but this, we are talking about the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Very good. Item 4.0-01 allows public bodies to meet through electronic communication means during emergency declarations, such as the current COVID-19 emergency. The governor has declared a state of emergency. The nature of this declared emergency makes it impracticable or unsafe for the public body to assemble in a single location. The purpose of meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the public body. The TJPDC MPO shall make available a recording of the meeting on its website in accordance with the timeframes established in 2.2-3707 and 2.2-3707.1 of the Code of Virginia. The nature of the emergency, the fact that the meeting was held by electronic communication means, and the type of electronic communication means by which the meeting was held shall be stated in the minutes of the public body. We will begin by calling attendance of the policy board members and then the MPO staff members. Excuse me. We ask that you keep your communication devices on mute until you prepare to speak. In addition, you may use the raise hand or chat feature to communicate, turning off my phone, to indicate that you would like to speak or ask a question, and the host will call on you. We ask the public stay on mute except for the public comment periods to cut down on background noise. Those wishing to speak during the hearings or public comment periods are asked to use the raise hand or chat function. We talked about that. The meeting host will call your name and then you can unmute yourself and speak to the group. And you can also share your comments by chat and the host will read your comments to the group. To see the raise hand feature on your screen, click on participants. At the bottom of your screen, the raised hand button will be at the bottom of your screen under the list of participants, and we will see your hand go up. So I thank you, and we can now revert back to the agenda. Thank you, Lucinda.
Madam Chair, if I could only add, for those that are just on telephone, you can *9 to raise a hand.
Okay, and I have lost the list of participants, but we'll get them back later. Very good. Next on our agenda is matters from the public. Limits of 3 minutes per speaker. We have Bill Emery and Paul Josie on the list so far. And if others would like to speak, please raise your hand or send a chat so that our Lucinda and Sandy will be able to add to the list.
And
So,
do you want me to do roll call now?
oh
or-
yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. Please do, yes.
Okay. All right. So Ann Malik,
Yes,
Lloyd Snook. Lloyd, you're here, right? We can't hear you. He's not here? Okay.
I haven't,
He's not on.
I-
Okay. Michael Payne,
He's
no.
not.
And Ned Galloway.
Here.
Oh, I see. Ned's here. John Lynch.
Here.
Okay. And then for TJPDC staff, we have Sandy Shackelford,
Here.
Gretchen Thomas. Gretchen's here.
I'm here. I'm here. Sorry, I'm here.
Jessica Ballering,
Here.
Chip Boyles.
Here.
Is Nick here?
No.
Okay. And Lucinda Shannon, I'm here. Okay. Thanks, Ann.
all
So
right.
Michael,
Thank you.
Michael Payne is being admitted right now.
Oh,
Excellent.
okay.
Good to know. Very good. Well, we will welcome Michael as soon as we see his smiling face. And so we are ready now, I think, to go on to item 2 on the agenda. Do we see Michael yet? I don't know.
I'm here.
Michael, are you there?
I'm
You
here.
are. Great to see you. All right. So we have the city represented. That's important. Thank you very much. So we have just called to order and I've read the legal preamble. So that's all that you missed. And we will now move on to matters from the public. And we would like to recognize Bill Emery first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you guys letting the public speak. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill Emery. I live in the city of Charlottesville. And I've been biking and walking in Charlottesville and Albemarle for the past 49 years. I deeply appreciate the steps our region has made in the direction of bike ped connectivity. You know, there are places that I bike and walk that terrify me, absolutely terrify me, but I'm patient. My hope, first for the MPO and localities, is do no harm. Build it once, build it right, build it beautiful. Build pathways that are the best possible. Pathways like the Ravenna and Saunders trails, pathways that people will love. If you build ugly, it takes money out of the budget and it lasts a long time. Conditions on the ground have changed since 2015. There are now better ways to make the bike ped connection to Monticello Mountain. The process of selecting the Route 20 SUP as a candidate for smart scale funding, no doubt it's been legal, but it's not highly transparent. I would respectfully suggest that you consider deferring the selection of the median SUP as a candidate for smart scale funding this year. Anyway, thank you very much for hearing me. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you for coming. Next I have written down is Paul Josie.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Paul Josie. I was the Charlottesville, the chair of the Tree Commission in Charlottesville from 2016 to 2019. And as a little background, this is in regards to the 10-foot shared bike path in the Route 20 median that Bill just mentioned. In 2009, the Secretary of Transportation designated the Route 20 stretch there as part of the National Scenic Byway for the journey through hallowed ground that's connecting Gettysburg to Monticello. So from 2015 to 2016, the Charlottesville Tree Commission, as well as VDOT, as well as the Charlottesville Area Tree Stewards, as well as the National Guard, the Journey Through Hallowed Ground, and a number of other groups planted over 80 memorial trees to fallen soldiers in that median on the way to Monticello. And we were surprised to see, learn last month that PEC has used basically a Charlottesville area community grant to develop a bike trail with no public process that removed nearly all of these memorial trees. That plan did not factor in grading or any existing utilities. And despite, that plan was also based upon a graduate school thesis paper and not really a public process at all. So how that was located there versus a proposed tunnel under 64 or other opportunities that really does not consider trees as problematic. And so I ask that you reject the design as proposed for Smart Scale grant and request for a revised concept plan that considers existing utilities, grading, and prioritizes the preservation of the existing memorial trees along Route 20. Thank you for your time. That is the primary one. And then secondarily, Grady and Preston, that Smart Scale design just seems very narrow-minded, and there's much bigger vision for all of Preston Avenue that doesn't consider. So thank you for my time.
Thank you very much. I have Chris Henry next on my list, but Lucinda or Sandy butt in if I raise your hand or say something if I'm out of list. Very good. So Chris, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I thank you, Ann, for the time, and thank you to the MPO for the volunteer hours put into making Charlottesville a better place and for listening to public comment. I'm going to be speaking about item number 10 on your agenda, the Smart Scale Round 4 projects. There's a couple of letters of support from for some projects in Albemarle County. I've actually submitted a letter of concern from Dairy Central. I represent the owners of that project as the developer, Stony Point Development Group. And we have some major concerns with the current proposal that is being submitted for Smart Scale funding. As Paul mentioned, there's been no community engagement on the solution to date. We have done a traffic study on the intersection related to this special use permit that was required for the development that we're building at that intersection. And our engineering team at Timmons Group has raised some technical concerns with the proposed plan that have not been addressed, and these will increase travel time through the intersection, create more pollution and congestion, and not improve pedestrian safety or experience. 3 comprehensive plans across 20 years in the city of Charlottesville, dating back to the 2000 comp plan, have called for a holistic small area plan for Preston Avenue, for the Preston Avenue corridor, but none has been done. 4 small area plans have been done and all integrated into land use with transportation planning and design in the region in recent memory that will be included in the CVIL Plans Together comprehensive plan update. We would recommend that a similar approach be taken for the Preston Avenue corridor and specifically the Preston and Grady, Preston and 10th intersection. And there's a need to robustly engage the community about the problems and solutions, keeping best practices in mind, such as improved pedestrian safety and pedestrian experience overall, not just traffic experience and what a traffic engineering report might show as a safe way. Emphasis should be placed on experience as well. There needs to be planning for and design of land use and transportation simultaneously, not solely transportation. And there needs to be enhanced access by creating new connections through and between the 3 adjacent neighborhoods, 10th and Page, Venable, and Rose Hill. And those are our primary concerns. We would respectfully request that the city rescind the Smart Scale application and work towards a small area plan that could incorporate a greater vision for this corridor and for this intersection. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Next on the list I have is Peter Krebs, followed by Robin Haynes. And Lucinda, is there anyone else on the list?
There's Kathy Neopote.
Okay. Go ahead, Peter, please.
Hey, good afternoon. I was actually not planning to speak today, but I just want to correct the record about a couple of things that were stated earlier. I think it's really, really important to be clear that the Route 20 Shared Use Path project is not a Piedmont Environmental Council project. full stop. This is a VDOT project, not PC. Secondly, I'm the author of the graduate study that the previous speaker alluded to. And what my study did is asked, is it feasible, is it desirable to connect from Charlottesville to Monticello? And what we found is, yes, it is feasible. We looked at a couple of routes. Broadly, we looked at a tunnel connecting Old Monticello Road. We looked at the idea of following Route 20. We looked at following the south side of Interstate 64. And we looked at a solution that would go through the PVCC grounds. And that's where we stopped. After that process, the stakeholders who worked on that report with us, that's VDOT, City, County, TJPDC, they looked at our recommendations and they decided to explore further the idea of connecting along Route 20. The idea of going down the median is not anybody's preferred option, but it's the one option that could be achieved within a generation. And so that's why that route is looked at. We're at the very beginning of a process, and I think robust community and conversations are good, and that's what's happening right now. I hope that everybody who's interested in the area, lots of passion, and that's good. I hope that everybody works together and finds a solution that works for everybody. But not doing the connection is just a missed opportunity that we can't afford. It means keeping the World Heritage Site in two separate inaccessible places. It means that people who can't get to PVCC without a car, or there's no bus, they're just out of luck. It means the southern neighborhood of the county is cut off from the rest of the region. And of course, it makes it so you have to drive a car to go for a walk at the Saunders-Monticello Trail. It's silly for that to happen when it's just a half-mile long corridor. We believe that a solution can be found if everybody puts their minds together and works in unison toward the shared goal. So you're not voting on anything tonight, but I just wanted to simply clarify the record. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Robin Haynes is next. Robin, go ahead.
My concern is that Peter and Jessica keep saying that there will be communications and outreach between a tree expert or people who care about the trees and the people who have put together the proposal. And there have been no communications so far, no specifics. And I'm afraid we're feeling like we're not really believing that you are able to compromise this proposal.
All set?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Kathy Leopold, are you here?
Kathy, if you're on mute, unmute yourself.
Yes, you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, and I'm gonna start doing the 3-minute timer so we can make sure everybody gets a chance to speak.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I'm talking about the bike path down Route 20. One of the problems with the project as presented is that no elevations was provided in the project design that was presented. And as such, you have no real picture of the impact that the bike trail, in order to install it, will have on the median itself. And if one clearly looks at it, it is abundantly clear that the trees in the median will be buried, and they will be buried from anywhere from 1 foot to 4 feet of dirt, because in order to have a level bike path, most of the median is going to have to be filled in, and this will severely damage the trees. And as such, I don't see how this will potentially be possible for us to have a bike path with trees along it, which would be what everyone would like to have. But it is difficult to see, given the median and the ditch in the median, how both can coexist.
Thank you, Kathy. Lucinda, who do you have next?
Barbara. No, there's no last name, just Barbara. Oh, I'm going to read Barbara's comment because she made the comment in the group chat.
Okay. And then Bob, I think.
So this is from Barbara. I am very concerned about the proposed destruction of the trees that were planted in memorial as the Monticello Gateway for the purpose of a bike path that will be very dangerous for most people to use. VDOT participated in the development of the Monticello Gateway Memorial tree planting and gave approval for it, as well as the U.S. Forest Service.
Very good. And I did see it.
DOT Bob has his hand up.
Yes, please, go right ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Dorothy Smith speaking for the Charlottesville Area Tree Stewards. Along with the Charlottesville Tree Commission and many, many partners, including Journey Through Hallowed Ground, we created the Monticello Gateway, which is a massive tree planting in the Route 20 median 5 years ago. So the trees are now 5 years old. And at some point in the future, that project will be a fabulous welcoming to Charlottesville and indicating of Charlottesville's interest in trees. Unfortunately, none of the experts on our board of directors can see how a 10-foot path could be put down the center of that median and still preserve those trees. By the time this project comes to being begun, they'll be 16 years old. To move them is not feasible. This is a massive public project started 5 years ago that looks to be on the way to being destroyed. I really don't see a lady with her child in a baby carriage going down the center of that median with cars going past on either side at 60 miles an hour, much less someone in a wheelchair. It seems that this is for bike people only, and I really can't see that it can coexist with the tree planting that is already there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have anyone else from the public who would like to speak at this time? Chip, a note flew by, but I couldn't read it in time. Did you have something you needed to add, Mr. Boyles?
No, I just added that Supervisor Price has written an email in support of the bike ped project, understanding the concerns, and we'll make that part of the comment record.
Thank you very much. Interesting. All right, so if we are done with matters from the public at this time, we will move on to the public hearing, the UPWP, the work program. And Lucinda, I think you are going to, is there a staff report first, and then we will open the public hearing? Go right ahead.
Sandy?
Yeah, happy to. So the Unified Planning Work Program is basically a summary document of how we are going to utilize and spend the funds that we receive from the FHWA and FTA on the different transportation projects. So I'm going to go through, I have my document open, and I'm just going to, just so I can sort of control that. And Lucinda, if you can sort of help move the document that everybody can see through, so that I can make sure that everybody is following along, and you can and I'll be careful to make sure I tell you where I am in the document. The very first thing that we talk about in the document is just the introductory information, the purpose of the Unified Planning Work Program, what an MPO is, long range transportation plan. This is pretty boilerplate. It's in the document every year, but if you're not familiar with the MPO programs, this is a really good introduction to what they are, why they're important, and how they all work together. And so it also has a map. Let's see, the map is on page 5 of what the boundaries are of the MPO area. And it shows how the UPWP relates to the long range planning efforts on that page as well. If you go down to the next page, it just talks about what the purpose is. We have a section about the public participation, Title VI, and environmental justice. This is important, and it's something that we are going to be talking about in the next couple of meetings with the policy board, as well as revising our public participation plan. We haven't really done a overhaul of it since 2016, and I think now that we're having this opportunity to have these virtual meetings, we're seeing that there's a lot more opportunity to get much better engagement. I think there's over 36 people on the call today. So we've I don't know if we've ever had 36 people in a meeting, but if we have, it hasn't been recently. So we really want to look at, as we get more familiar with the technology, everybody gets comfortable with it. We want to look at how we can continue to enhance public participation and make some of the things that we do more accessible to the general public. This next section, so going to the top of page 7, talks about where our funding sources come from. And so, as I mentioned, we get it both from the Federal Highway Administration and from the Federal Transit Administration. And then the tables below show the funding by source. And then it also shows the funding by task. So we have funding by source, which shows the breakdown between how much money we receive from the PL is the Federal Highway Administration funding, and then the FTA funding below that. And then the VDOT funding that you show below that is what supports VDOT staff to support the MPO in their efforts. So that's not money that the MPO receives directly, but money that the VDOT has provided to support their staff in helping us with the projects that we need. And then you'll see in that second table, it shows the work program by task. And so all of our programs are divided up by administrative tasks, which are basically the things that we have to do to keep the organization running, make sure we submit all the right reports, have staff for the meetings, maintain the meeting materials online, meet all of those kinds of requirements. Task 2 are the long range projects, and then task 3 are the short range projects. And so I'm going to go through and show you what we're proposing to utilize those funds for over this next fiscal year. We do a section on the highlights of the fiscal year 20 UPWP. You all should be familiar with most of these projects. So one thing I do want to highlight is in terms of the very last project is the Regional Transportation Revenue Study. We have gotten good progress to sort of developing a framework for that analysis, but during this legislative session, there were some new bills that were passed to increase revenue through tax increases. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're not really sure where we stand on that. So we're kind of we're bringing that project to a stopping point to sort of wrap up for now so that we can resume it once all the details of what our funding allocations are actually going to be. There are just too many unknowns for us to be able to do an analysis in good faith at this point. So we'll be coming back to that once things kind of settle down again and we have a better idea of where we are. So then if you go down to the next page, starting on page 10, this starts breaking down how the funding is allocated and broken up among tasks. So of course, the first thing is making sure that we meet all the requirements, like preparing the TIP, preparing the work programs, submitting the performance measures, monthly reports, that kind of thing, invoices so we can make sure we get revenue coming in, staffing committees, information sharing, maintaining a website. And one of the things that we've also talked about in this upcoming fiscal year is that in addition to just maintaining the website as a status quo, The organization as a whole is hoping to do a pretty substantial overhaul to what the PDC website looks like, which will also include the MPO. And then we also want to start looking at some ways where we can share information more effectively and make it a little bit easier to get information, create kind of an online dashboard of important facts to make it easy to find information on the website related to some of the more technical things that we do. Cross-jurisdictional communication, this is to support us showing up at meetings and coordinating with other MPOs, that kind of thing. And then if we go down to public participation, I already mentioned that we want to make sure that we're updating our public participation plan that's required for the MPO. And one of the things that has really stood out to us is that we need to do a better job of making information accessible, both from how it can be, how people can actually obtain the information themselves, but also make it easier to digest and process. So we're going about that in two ways, and part of it is in a different section of this plan. But one of the things we're talking about doing is really looking at what kind of outreach we do to traditionally underserved communities, so minority communities, communities with low English speaker households, communities that are historically low income, that kind of thing, and looking at how we can utilize some of the systems and organizations that are in place to help with those outreach, and also looking at how we can make information more available through a variety of mediums. And that will also go along with the online resources as well. And then that just supports updates. And so then when we go to the long range transportation planning, we start getting into more of like the project work. So the first thing we have goes along with that public participation right there, and that's the MPO 101 primers. So this is an effort to take some of this technical detailed information and to put it in a condensed format that covers all the basics but doesn't unnecessarily get into detail. And so we want to develop a series of approximately 1 page front and back. We'll see how it goes if there are some things, but helping to explain what is smart scale process and how does that work? How does that provide funding? What's the process that you go through? What fundings are available? That kind of thing. What's a tip and why is it important, and what information? How does that interact with the long range transportation plan? What is a long range transportation plan? So just taking some of those programs and finding ways to communicate what their purpose is and provide that both for people who are new to the MPO and also to the general public. Again, to help people understand why these documents are important, why these processes are important, and how they can participate in shaping them. The second project we talked about, I think we already mentioned setting aside some funding to look at the safety performance measures analysis specifically. There's a lot of confusion about why we are setting the targets we are, what are the implications of setting those targets. And so we really wanted to invest time and staff resources into making sure that we can communicate clearly and help understand and help all of our committees and the general public as well understand how those targets get developed, what they're used for, and what the impacts are for meeting them or not meeting them. So we wanted to go ahead and put that in the budget. We put money in the budget for some bike and pedestrian counts. We used to do these in the past and it kind of fell off, and Jessica has worked on these before, and so we think it's really important to start getting better, more accurate data on where the bicycle and pedestrian transportation traffic is. And so this is going to utilize, we're going to look into opportunities to utilize new technologies by VDOT to help with counters, and also potentially create a program with volunteers to coordinate getting tracking information counts through the use of volunteers, and using this with other sources of data just to make sure that we have a more complete picture. So when we do talk about the needs for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, we have information to back that up. Equity in transportation, again, kind of goes along with the public participation efforts that we're doing, but we want to start, especially as we're ramping up for the next long-range transportation plan update, is identifying areas where we need to really do a more robust job of making sure that people that are traditionally underserved and overlooked in the planning process have opportunities to be included. So the first step to this is that we're going to develop a list of criteria to determine what makes a community more likely to be underrepresented in the planning process. We'll probably utilize the Citizens Transportation Committee to help develop what those criteria should be. And then we'll start mapping with paying specific attention to places where there's an overlap, where communities have multiple criteria. And so one of the things that we hope to do with this is to identify areas where we need to make sure that we do extensive outreach to engage those folks more, but also that we are making sure that we consider those needs in those communities in our planning efforts. Regional transit and rail planning, this supports ongoing work with things like developing a plan to get improvements and enhancements and expanding services to the Amtrak station. This also helps provide additional staff support for the Regional Transit Partnership. We put a project in here to look at needs assessment for the electric vehicle charging stations. Again, these kind of are taking up gradually more and more of the market share. The Market Street Garage, I believe it is, has put in some electric recharging stations. And so we just want to take a look at what recharging stations are already there and where are there opportunities to work with other major destination centers to potentially recommend where additional needs are for these vehicles to recharge. And then we put this in both the rural work plan and the urban work program, but the Route 29 North Corridor study is just looking at transportation movement, even beyond the Albemarle County border into Greene County, and working towards developing a plan to coordinate efforts that extend beyond just the MPO boundaries. So I'll stop there before I go to the short range planning, just to see if there's any questions from the board members. Yep.
Thank you. Questions for Sandy on this issue? Raise your hand and listen.
Oh, Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about the primers? One of the things that stood out, and I know that there's online resources kind of built through some of these other categories, but it was, the specific item online resources is about $8,000, and then the primers is $20,000. And it just struck me in the current situation that the availability of information online or through other means than coming to an office would seem to be important. So I don't know if I fully understand primers or what they are. And they're just wanting to understand how we've allocated the money out that, when I see it says community engagement, people are actually going to come there to see these primers available in the MPO office. It says and online as well.
There are a couple different ways that we think the primers could be utilized. First of all, it's for training our own internal staff and our own committee members to be able to provide them a resource where all this information is available in an easily accessed format. Some of it will be specific to our organization. Some of it will be taking other technical information and, putting it into a format that isn't quite so technical. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for all the information in one place. So there are two things that are more internally focused. And then we would also be able to provide these as online resources. And so when we do things like our smart scale outreach, I think one of the things that was really clear is we need to really communicate what that process is for members of the public. It's important that we're talking about the projects, but I realize that probably we have an opportunity to also help people understand the process as well, so they know how to engage earlier in the process. Same thing with the tip. All this information is available within the tip itself, but you kind of have to get into the weeds of the document in order to start accessing it. So it's just to reduce some of those barriers to access, to make it really kind of visually inviting, to simplify the information, but to simplify the presentation of the information so that it's not overwhelming, and that opening up a technical document in and of itself isn't a barrier to get somebody involved and engaged and participating in the process.
I think I understand. So I was just being a little dense on the word primer. So it's just like a tutorial for these things, is that?
Yeah, I mean, we're calling them primers. You could call them, we call them a couple different things, one-pagers, but it's basically just, if you don't know anything about it, you can read this document and have a pretty good high-level understanding of what those programs are and the important elements of it.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. And any other questions?
I'll just add one thing related to Ned's comment, and that is that from 2000 to 2008, that was the primary role of the Citizens Committee. We called it CHART in the old days, and now you call it CTAC. But
yeah, I know. I think
we're out and about and all around throughout the year, and it made very accessible to all different neighborhoods, and having conversations about these things was very, very well received. So I would encourage people to think about that. I know.
Yeah, I think Jessica's had conversations with CTAC, and this will hopefully help them again, have those conversations and, give them more resources to be engaged with their communities as well.
I think going back in the notes, the definitions of the tips and things have not changed in 10 years. So going back in the notes from what was done in that decade, I think would be very useful for you all.
Yeah.
To not reinvent the wheel.
Thank you.
Very good.
We will look at that. And then the short, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just asking for other questions. Go ahead.
Okay. In the short range planning section, we'll continue to provide updates on the tip. We're pretty close to having that one, depending on what you all decide to do today. We're pretty close to having the updated version done, but we'll continue to look for ways where we can make that information a little bit more accessible and easy to understand. Lucinda, based on the conversation we had at last MPO board, Lucinda went back and added a lot of comments into those big funding boxes. So I think that helps a little bit, or a lot, to make it understandable. So we'll be continuing to look for ways to update that, and otherwise just generally keep it updated as amendments and adjustments come in. Short range planning project, this is mostly going to support the completion of the smart scale applications at this time. Those are due at the beginning of August. Travel demand management helps support the rideshare program. So that's something that we contribute to regularly. And then again, there's additional money just to support the regional transit partnership, and potentially looking at whether or not this needs to develop into a transit authority, and support ongoing efforts with that as well. And then we just put a little bit of funding in the budget for on-call services. So as, Albemarle or Charlottesville gives us a call and maybe they need some technical assistance here or there, we have money already allocated for that. And then the very last section under contracted projects and studies are just things that potentially, if we get the ability or funding to work on these, we'll move forward with this. So this would be kind of beyond what funding is already allocated in the plan. And if we get additional grants come in, these are additional work that we might be able to undertake that would continue to support the MPO, but wouldn't be funded through the MPO current funding mechanisms. So.
Very good. Thank you very much. And if there are no more questions, we will open the public hearing. And does anyone wish to speak to us during the public hearing? Do we have anyone with hands raised today for the public hearing? Let's see. Oh, goody, I can get my participants back. All right. I do not see any hands raised, so I guess.
So if somebody's on the phone and would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand by pressing *9.
We do not want to leave anyone out, so please don't be shy. All right. Well, I will take that we have no public participants in this public hearing tonight and close the public hearing. Thank you. So next up, let's see. Sandy, are you doing the next item on the agenda as well, or does that go to Lucinda?
Lucinda will do that, yeah.
Okay, I'm just pulling it up.
Very good.
So this is the public hearing for the TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. And the TIP is kind of a budget document, and it's a 5-year plan. It's a 4-year plan. It's a 5-year plan. It's done every 4 years. So this one is for fiscal year 2021 to 2024. I'm still trying to pull it up here. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it's basically, there's 3 different categories that the funding is broken into. There's VDOT funding. There is funding, and then there's the public transit funding. So that would be for Cat and John. So this is the TIP. It's available on the website and also in the packet for tonight's meeting. It's the draft, what we're proposing to pass. And we also discussed this at the last policy board meeting. And there were quite a few questions, and the TIP was updated to include some comments and explanation of what the projects are. So the first part kind of just goes through what the TIP is and how it works. And basically, but with VDOT, the funding is all through the state. So the first part of the TIP is, this is the MPO area map, is based on what the state is planning on spending for each project. And then the second part are with the 2 public transit agencies, and those are what they've proposed and agreed to with the FTA. So I'll just pull up some of the tables if we can scroll down to them. And so there's a table that for each project, and some of them are grouped together like bridge maintenance. So this is what a table looks like. And I'll just go to the first one and we can go through it. And again, I don't want to go through a lot of these. I mostly want to get to people's questions because we did go through this at the last meeting.
Yes.
So this is the federal funding that we're receiving, and this by the source. So, and most of it's all through the federal, the Department of Transportation. And so then we have the interstate projects. It's grouped by kind of project type. And this is a new one, and it's for the Innovation and Technology Transportation Fund. And every MPO, every area is contributing a little bit of it, and it's to fund pilot programs to use technology to reduce congestion and improve mobility and safety. And then there's primary projects are projects like the Route 29 hydraulic intersection and other intersection improvements. So I guess I'm going to ask if there's any questions up to this point. And I guess we'll take the board members first and then the public at the very end of the presentation. Any questions? Okay.
I'm glad for the extra explanations that were put back in. It looks more like the ones in the old days. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and so like this one here, the US 29 Rio Road, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the project is US 29 Rio Road grade separated intersection, and it's all zeros because it's just waiting to be closed out. So some of them are, you know, it's a lot of accounting and bookkeeping, trying to keep everything with like in alignment with what the state is doing. So here's the urban projects. And then I'm gonna go down to, and then these are like bridge rehabilitation, kind of smaller things that are grouped together, a lot of maintenance. And then we have the transit projects. So these are the funding sources for the transit projects. That's for CAT. And as you can see, I added a summary for those. So this is the funding that we're receiving, that we're expected to receive in the upcoming years from the FTA and from the different sources of the FTA. And then CAT added a summary of what they're planning on doing and the funds that they're using. And then it's broken down into projects as well. And are there any questions on the CAT projects? Okay.
For me, there was a good discussion, city county discussion and board discussion in the spring. So I think we have learned a lot. And if Mr. Williams or Mr. Sheffield want to add anything as the chart goes by, I'm glad to hear from them.
And then we had John is the same thing. This is what they're expecting for the next year. They added some descriptions of the projects, and then these are the projects broken out into and more explanations. So yeah, we had a really good meeting last the last policy board meeting. So any other questions from the board?
I have a project question. So this is the tip, and this would be the step before funding. So, or first step of funding. So where in this long list of projects would, and just using the Gateway Trail as an example, because so many people were interested in it earlier today at the Pub Matters from the Public, where would it fit in this list? Is it on this list already? Where does it fit?
Chuck?
Do you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
Okay. It would not be here. These are funded projects.
Very good.
And so the Route 20 is not a funded project yet.
So I'm glad you clarified that, because in the meeting packets, it seemed to be on the list with $3.6 million attached to it. And so this is where I needed the clarification.
Yes, yes, yes. This helps both locally and the state, once a project is funded, spreading those dollars out over the life of the project. You may have design in the first year and then perhaps 2 years of construction. This helps to budget that money out over that longer period.
Very good. Other questions, folks? Board members or the public, raise your hand so we'll know you want to speak. Okay. Well, go on with your presentation then, Lucinda. I don't see any hands at the moment.
Okay, that was the end of my presentation.
All right. Then this is a public hearing as well. So of course, it is now time for people to speak during the public hearing about the TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. So let's invite people present to tell us what you want to know, or tell us what you want us to know. Thank you. Maybe they're all waiting for matters from the public at the end of the meeting. I don't know. All right.
Oh, Wood Hudson raised his hand.
Oh, good. Thank you, Wood. Join us. Thank you, Wood.
Yes, this is Wood Hudson with Department of Rail and Public Transportation. I just wanted to touch on a few things in the transportation part of the TIP, transit part of the TIP, excuse me. We do expect that as the funding situation continues to evolve and we continue to receive data on what we can expect in terms of available revenues for state match for transit projects, that there will be some changes to the FY21 tip blocks for the CAT and JAUNT tip sections. And we're hoping to have more details available on that in the next couple months once we have better data that we can evaluate in terms of available resources.
Thank you. So
But
we
one
have
of
to
the-
consider this a living that has to
Yeah.
be changed along the way.
Yeah, one of the things that the MPO staff does is update the tip periodically as budgets change and we're notified of changes. So we continuously update it.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the multitude gathered here? I do not. I'm looking down the list. All right, well, I do not see any, so if no one shouts out, I will go ahead and close the public hearing part of this. And now that we have 4 of our 5 members present, we are able to vote if this is the time to vote to adopt this particular part. Am I correct about that?
It is later in the agenda. However, you can vote now on it if you would like.
We can follow the agenda. I got out of turn. That's fine. I can't see the agenda right now, so that's my problem.
I'm scrolling up to it.
Okay. I should have printed it out to have it on the side here, and I forgot.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do this. There. So the next thing on the agenda is the review and acceptance of the agenda.
Well, there's a good idea. Is there anyone in the group who has changes or corrections to make to the agenda? Now that we're halfway through, that's always a good time to do that. Any things to add to the agenda for discussion later on today? Don't be shy. All right, then I guess I will take that as consensus that we have. No, we have to have a vote, so I will wait for a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved. This is Ned Galloway.
And do we have a second? And I will second it. All in favor of accepting the agenda? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I hear good. Anybody opposed? Don't hear any. Very good. So that part is done, thankfully. Now, for those who were present in the 2019 and early 2020 minutes, are there other corrections or changes which would need to be made? Or do we have a motion on the minutes now that we are finally gathered together with a quorum to be able to adopt them?
Madam Chair, the July 24th minutes have me absent, yet I was making and seconding motions throughout the meeting. I wish I had memory of which was accurate, but I'm going to go with that I was there and it's just a mistake that I was absent.
I think you put that correction in earlier as well. I remember that happening. So very good. We'll get that changed.
Who was speaking? Who was that?
Ned Galloway.
Okay.
In parentheses, it's got me as absent, but then I'm making motions and seconding. So I'm hoping I was there.
Okay. We'll make that change.
Thank you very much.
Then I would move to approve the 2019, the July 24 and October 1, 2019 minutes.
Second, John Lynch. John Lynch, second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we have a second motion on the January and March meetings? I was present, so I'm glad to make the motion if there are others who were able to do that.
I'm happy to second the motion for March 25. For 22nd, I'll have to abstain. So I don't know if we need to take different votes on.
All right. All right. Well,
I can
let's
second the
vote
January 22nd if you like.
Very good. then let's go ahead and do January 22nd. All in favor of the minutes with Ned as an abstention? Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. And then March 25th, we have a motion. You said Ned has made a motion to approve March 25th. And I can second that. So all in favor of adopting the minutes for March 25th, 2020?
Yes.
Aye? Very good. Thank you.
And I'll
All
have
right,
to
we have
abstain because I was absent.
Very good. On the 25th of March. Very good. Thank you, John. So now we move on to policy board officers. And do we have a transition prepared on this? Have the city, Michael, have the city representatives decided who would like to be chair for the next round, or do you need more time to take that?
Transparently, no, that conversation has not happened.
All right, well, we have a choice. We can just elect you, or we can let you and Lloyd talk about it and do something next time. You decide how you want to do that.
I'm fine doing it. I don't know what hiccups it could cause to delay it. I don't anticipate any conflict between Lloyd and I on it. I'm happy to do that if it helps things move forward.
Very good. Well then, we can, what I would do, I think, is to nominate Michael Payne to be chair. And Ned, would you like to be vice chair since it's the county's turn to flip to vice chair for next time?
Frankly, if,
Are you available?
hold on, if I'm muting, unless you're objecting to it, Ann, if you were vice chair just because you've been chair and we have somebody that's relatively new to the thing, it might be better to have you as vice chair with your experience running the board as chair. Well, but I'm happy to do it, but I would defer to you on that just because since you've been chair, it may, if I were in Michael's position, I would prefer having the past chair as my vice chair. This is not an attempt to weasel out of the vice chair, though.
No, I don't sense any weaseling at all, but I did not want to be piggish either. So thank you. I'm glad to continue on as vice chair if that's the will of the board.
I'd make the motion that Ann Malik be vice chair of the board.
All right.
Second.
Very good. So we have two nominations, and why don't we vote on them all together? That would be simpler. So all in favor of Michael Payne as chair and Ann Malik as vice chair, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? I hear none. So we now have new officers. And Michael, would you like to take over leading the meeting now or start again next time?
Maybe next time.
All right, that's fine. I just wanted to hand the mic if it was time. Very good. Then let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the CTAC membership. And that has a star. And who is presenting this to us?
That's Jessica Balring.
I know that there was a vacancy for the Albemarle County person, and I don't know if we've had any people who have signed volunteer. Then we can, do we need to nominate somebody from the board? Does the board of Albemarle County, board of supervisors need to nominate someone, or is someone from the county able to self-nominate and then be approved by the MPO board?
So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No,
Go ahead,
I was going to fill in if you weren't there, but you're here.
I'm here. I wasn't aware I was presenting, but that's okay. Really briefly, we had a self-nomination of a person who had been representing the city and has finished his term, and he's since moved out of the city and would like to represent the MPO. His name is Travis Pietla, and he so served 1 3-year term and interested in serving as the MPO rep.
Well, that is spectacular, because I was feeling very sorry for myself that he was leaving. So now I don't have to do that after all. All right. So this has a star, which means we have to vote to confirm the nomination. Would that be the right way to, or just appoint? All right. So I will move that we appoint Travis Pietla to the CTAC membership as a county representative.
Second.
Any other nominations? All right, then.
Just real quick, Ann, Not as a
Yes, go
county
ahead.
not as a county representative, but as an MPO representative.
All right, but he lives in the county, right? Because, okay, very good. Thank you very much. Then for that clarification. Now, go ahead. So all in favor? Aye.
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 And I will follow up with a question. So does that mean we still have a county representative space available? Or does that take care of it?
And we have a number of spaces available. So if anyone from the county would like to self-nominate or recommend anyone, please put them in touch with me.
Very good. We will do that. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so next on our agenda, number 8 is the 2021. Okay, so we UPWP, and we have done the review. And so is there further discussion or further questions about the review that Sandy presented a little while ago? Or are we ready for a vote to on this item?
The only thing
Madam-
We're ready. I'll be glad to have.
Oh, I was just going to add that we did present this at both the CTAC and the MPO Tech Committee. MPO Tech Committee did vote to recommend approval of it to you all. CTAC, I had very good feedback, but they did not take a formal vote.
Very good. I think there was a quorum issue there too. Very good. And John, did I hear you about to say something?
Well, I just had a question on the attachment A 4.0. It indicated coordination with MBTA and Washington Area Council of Governments. Was that something left over from something else, or is that a legitimate task or item?
Attachment A. Is that the VDOT? Does that describe the VDOT work?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, Chuck provided that to me, so I would need him to. Yeah, I would need him to communicate that. Are you?
All right, so is that something where we should hold up the adoption, or whether we should just take it out? If it's not appropriate to be in there, we should take it out next time.
Yeah, I think we could approve with the addendum if needed, or adjustment. It really doesn't have any consequence. I meant to ask Chuck before the meeting and I didn't get the chance.
All right. That's a perfect example of why it's so important that you're here, John, because I don't understand that stuff and I need you to explain it. So thank you. That's great. All right. Any other discussion on the 2021 UPWP? And then do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the 2021 Unified Planning Work Program.
Very good. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Any opposed? None opposed. All right, now we are moving on to number 9, 2021 to 24 TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. Are there more questions or discussion about that? And Lucinda led us through that program, and we have looked at it a lot this spring and benefited from a lot of really good discussion. So, and as Chip clarified, these are for projects which are already down the pike long enough, far enough to be funded already, which is a really important clarification. So if there are no further questions or discussion, do we have a motion on number 9?
I'll move
All right, I will make a
approval of the
motion.
21-24 Transportation Improvement Program.
I will second that. Go ahead. All right, so all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Any opposed? And none opposed, so those both carry. Those are adopted. Next on our agenda is the Smart Scale Round 4 projects to review and discuss proposed projects for the MPO area. And who will lead us on that discussion?
Oh, okay. I can do that.
All right.
So this is on here. We had the workshop on the 15th and 16th. And we've been collecting public comments on the smart scale projects. We had some comments at the beginning of this meeting as well on the projects. And we've had over 250 comments submitted to us. So we're working to kind of collate those and organize them. And we will be distributing those with the public and with all of the board members and the county and city staff people as well. The public comment period is open until the end of the month. So we're still collecting, and we will have a summary of all of the comments in the first or second week in June. And this is on the agenda in case that there's questions from the policy board on any of the projects. We have representatives here who are familiar with all of the projects. So now is the time for policy board members if they have any additional questions about any of these projects.
Well, I guess one question I will start with is, what is the timetable, the planning going forward for the public meetings and public discussion? Because I think it's very important for the Board of Supervisors to host a meeting and for the City Council to host a meeting for people to actually come and have a chance to talk about these things, if there are any for which they are interested. And certainly we have heard discussion today about projects which are on this list that need more discussion. And so I have asked our county staff to help with trying to figure out how this can be done at a board meeting in June for the county, but what other means are being done formally, because it's different to me to have an open invitation for public comment in general, as opposed to having a meeting where you have a selected group of people who are invited to come and give their feedback. So we have to do a really good job to make sure we are opening the opportunities to all. So that's what I would like to know. Thank you.
I'm hoping that the city and the county staff who are on the call will speak directly to their plans for that.
This is Jeanette Yanichek with the city, and we are currently planning to hold a public meeting in the sense of on the 360 program that Brian Wheeler is holding for the Preston Grady, so we can have more discussions and comments, questions. And that's going to be in the coming months ahead.
Very good. Thank you, Jeanette. Kevin or Daniel, are you still here?
Yeah, this is Kevin McDermott. I'm here. From the county's perspective, there was discussion of making the presentation on smart scale items a public hearing previously, but that was prior to the COVID-19 issues that arose. Since then, it was the executive's office had come back to us and said, rather than try and make that a public hearing, they would just like to have that as a regular agenda item with the Albemarle County Board. So on the 17th, the idea that this June 17th is for me to come and I will present information on all the projects, and that would be the opportunity for the board to vote on a resolution to approve all of those projects. We would, as I said, we would really like to make that a public hearing, but it was just because of the issues that we're having with public meetings right now that was recommended to be changed. So they could still, and obviously Supervisor Galloway can discuss this because he is he is our chairman of the board right now. But that was just the idea that we had put out. The public would be able to speak at the beginning of that meeting during matters of the public if they wanted to talk about that. But the board will be voting on those projects at a public setting.
Okay, so I will leave the technical adjustments to you, whether it's at the beginning of the meeting that the people, matters from the public where people can speak, or at the proper time on the agenda. The same amount of time will be required either way, but as long as that will be happening and June 17th is the day, then that would be acceptable. And then in July, it will come back to the MPO for approval. Is that correct? Once each jurisdiction's elected boards have directed their representatives of how to vote, which is what's the most important thing for us to accomplish at the local level, then we would be able to move on at the July MPO meeting. I think that's correct.
Yeah, yes. So in the July meeting, we will ask the policy board to vote on a resolution to support the smart scale projects that are within the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And we will, of course, follow what the county board of supervisors recommends, that recommends for the projects.
Very good.
And you'll have to forgive my ignorance because I don't know how this process usually plays out, but I guess a question for the city staff member on the call is if there's any possibility of having this presented and, maybe not a public hearing, but in any way at a upcoming city council meeting, just because I know Cville 360 has been very successful and reaches a lot of people, but I know some of the community feedback on there doesn't necessarily filter up to every single council member.
Yes, we'll be presenting before City Council. We have to provide a resolution of support from City Council in support of these applications. Looking for the date, the deadline. We have a deadline of August 3rd to receive a resolution of support, so before that.
Okay. Thank you. And someone just in the chat asked, what is Charlottesville 360? That is a new program that the city's communications department doing on public access TV, and it's streamed on Facebook and Twitter twice a week, and it's conversations with the city manager and city staff about various issues, and it's just a new initiative to try and get more of these debates out in the public. Thank you.
Very good. And just one little bit of alarm, and that is if the MPO representatives from the city are expected to vote in July, they need their guidance before that rather than August 3rd, just to help, so you have a really good foundation of what you want to do. Very good. Thank you very much. Now, where are we? Lucinda, any more on item 10? We're set. The smart scale projects.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Now, number 11, staff updates, tip adjustment.
Okay, I'm gonna scroll down to that adjustment. It's a very minor thing. It just is an adjustment to align us, the tip, the MPO tip with the state STIP. And it's just moving some money. So, sorry, this is my first time doing this, so I will get faster at moving through the packet. I just want to show you the blocks. And this is just for your information. You don't have to vote on it. So
very good.
This is the block that was updated. And there's a memo on it in the packet.
Very good.
And that's all. It's just FYI if there's any questions.
So the source of the money is different, or different amounts in different boxes, but it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing has really changed on the project itself. It's just moving the money between years and sources. I'm going to go back up to the agenda. So that's all for staff updates, unless Chip or Sandy, you have anything, or Jessica?
Not from me. I'm good.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So we have made it to number 13, which is additional matters from the public. Are there any members of our public online today or on the phone who would like to speak to us about anything? And do we have any hands raised, or I think we've worn everyone out. I don't see any hands raised. Lucinda, do you see anyone?
No, if somebody's on the phone who would like to comment, just press *9 and that will raise your hand for us to see.
Very good. Very good. And then, all right. Well, I think that we have concluded with additional matters from the public, and our next meeting date is July 22nd, which may or may not be virtual. We just don't know. And we'll just have to roll with the punches and do the very best job we can. But I thank everyone for your patience, and I find these meetings much more exhausting than face-to-face because I don't get that wonderful energy back from all the people in the room. But we will do our very best to hang together here and get through this. So I guess we'll now adjourn, and thank you to staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Be careful.
Good night.